Bim bom, bim 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 bom, bim 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 bom. Bim bom, bim 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 bom, bim 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 bom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat Shabbat. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you so much for being here tonight. For those of you who are joining us from the comfort of your living rooms, we're glad that you're here also. I hope I'm not going to be too distracted because I feel so blessed and lucky that Emily, our daughter, and Layla, one of our granddaughters, is here tonight to enjoy Shabbat with us. So, yes. Let's begin on page 3. Before we light our Shabbat candles. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Excuse me.
And if you'll please rise for the Kiddush.
Which you'll find on page 5.
On page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon yinhilanu Zikaron l'maaseh Bereshit Ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta Mikol Hamim V'Shabbat Kodshecha B'Ava Uvratzon Hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And you may be seated. And on page 6, I'll start with the top paragraph. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured. A beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves.
Now we in our turn come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its thresholds. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak. Let these drop away as the door in the brightness of Shabbat. Let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. And we'll continue with our Kabbalat Shabbat on page 10. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim. Books over there. Hine yachad. Hine ma tov. Hine ma tov. Yada da 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 da. Hine ma tov. Hine ma tov. Yada da 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 da. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good and how pleasant it is that brothers and sisters dwell together. And continuing with Mayafeh Hayom, just below that. Mayafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Mayafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Mayafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. Mayafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom. And at the bottom of the page, the sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our Queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace. So with that, let's sing Lachado D, which you'll find on page 20. Lechado di likrat kala, panei Shabbat nekabala. 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 Shalom bor du debor echad, hishmiyanu laham yachad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, L'shem uvteret v'telehila. Lechado di likrat kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah, Lekrat Shabbat Lehuvel Necha, Ki hi mechor habraha, Merosh Mekedem Nesuha, Sof Mamasa Pemashevati La, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam simcha utzola tokemune, Am skula, Boi chala, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Kabbalah. And you may be seated. Continuing with a psalm, a song for Shabbat at the bottom of page 22. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai! How very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. The righteous bloom like a date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age, they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong. And we've welcomed the Shabbat bride, and now we will welcome our Shabbat angels on page 24 with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nila Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Peace be to you, O ministering angels, messengers of the Most High, Majesty of majesties, Holy One of blessing.
And we'll continue on page 26 with the Chatzi Kaddish. Join me however you'd like. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bialma divra kirte v'yamlik malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye de kol beit Yisrael. Bagala, Bagala, Uvisman Kariv, Vimaru, Amen. Yeheshme Rabba Mivorach, Leolam Ol Me'ol Maya, Yitbarak, Vayisbarak, Vayishbarak, Vayisraman, Vayitramam, Vayitnaseh, Vayitadar, Vayitale, Vayitalal, Shemei Dekudasha Barihu, Le'ela min kol birchata vashirata, Tushbechata v'nei emata, Damiram bialmav, Vaimaru, Amen. What does it mean to be called to worship? All serious activity requires preparation. The prayers and blessings that proceed the Baruchu are warm-ups for the individual. Now communal prayer begins. The leader asks, "Are you ready to pray?" And we respond, "Yes, let us pray." And you'll find the Baruchu on page 28, and if you'll please rise. We open that ark. Get the Baruch head. Thank you. Baruchu Adonai Hamavorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. You may be seated. I'll continue with the reading on page 29. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the songs of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. We'll continue on page 31 with the Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night, as heaven spans to infinity. You set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai ha'amariv aravim. You're on page 33.
Continuing on page 33, we're just flowing right along. Bottom of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohei Amo Yisrael. Yeah, Teresa, we could turn that temp down a bit, I think, yes.
Is everybody else really warm?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see. Yeah. And I think when you're up here, it's even a little bit warmer.
Continuing with the Shema on page 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Malchuto Leolam Vayed.
Please join me in the Via Hafta in English on page 37. Let's read this together. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. And continuing on page 37. Love your, no, excuse me, we've done that.
39.
39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. Please join me. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let's continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
And rather than singing the Michamoka tonight, I wanted to share Alden Solovy's take on the Michamoka. Who is like you? Who is like you, God of mystery and majesty, distant and present, thundering and quiet, the beginning and the end, the atom and the cosmos, the darkness and the light, the one and the all, pillar and foundation, artist of sea and sky, author of the miraculous and the mundane, source of life, blessing and sustaining creation. Who is like you, glorious in holiness, to whom we praise, to whom we give thanks, the God who redeemed us from Egypt, the God who parted the sea, the God to whom Miriam and Moses led us in song. And continuing with Miriam's word. Listen, always dance in the direction of holiness, always sing in the direction of heaven. Our dance is a prayer, our song is an offering of joy and love. And you will feel the glory of God's presence pass through you. You will feel the breath of life surround you. Together we will become a hymn, praise that resounds throughout the earth, throughout the ages. Women will dance this dance, sing this song, pray this prayer. Come. Summon your joy, summon your voice, summon your heart, summon the generations to this song, to this dance. All praise to God Most High, who leads us through moments of hope and comfort, of celebration and victory, of triumph and exaltation. Dance, dance. And continuing then with Vishamru, please rise, and it's on page 44. Layla, we're going to sing and dance and sing and clap. Vish.
Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasod et ha-Shabbat, ladoratam baridolam. Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasod et ha-Shabbat, ladoratam baridolam. He leolam, od he leolam, od he leolam. Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et HaShabbat. Lasod et HaShabbat Ladoratam Barit Olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat. Lasod et HaShabbat Ladoratam Barit Olam. Uvayom hashivi Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Vishamru V'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat. Lasod et HaShabbat Ladoratam
Barit Olam. And be seated for just a moment. And again, from Alden Salovi tonight, before we start the Amidah. Finding God. Finding God is as simple as breathing in the morning air, as simple as seeing the light around you, as simple as feeling your heartbeat fill your chest. Learning to breathe, to see, to feel the presence of holiness, that is the secret. That is the journey. How quiet and still, how open and aware, how ready and willing must we be to see the extraordinary in the mundane. Before we can see a bush in flames that is not consumed, before we take off our shoes in the light of awe and majesty, finding God is as simple as breathing in mystery, as simple as seeing the radiance around you, as simple as feeling glory fill your limbs, and wonder fill your chest. So this brings us to the Amidah, which begins on page 48 and continues through page 62. And again, as we always say, this is your opportunity to read the words in the Siddur in English or Hebrew, or to say the words in your heart. Please feel free to be seated when you're done. And we'll start with the intention first on page 46.
Adonai Sephatai Titach Ufi Gitahi Latecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Please join me on page 62 with Ose Shalom.
Ose Shalom Bimromav, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Ve'akol Yisrael, Vimru, Vimru, Amen. Yahase Shalom, Yahase Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'akol Yisrael. 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 So tonight's Parsha is Vayashev, and I had this Parsha about 9 years ago, and I sort of did a revision of it for tonight. So like Jacob in the Bible, I did a lot of wrestling when I sat down to write a drash for tonight's Parsha. And the Parsha for this Shabbat, Vayashev, this Parsha tells the story of Joseph. Yes, it's the Joseph who is well known as the son of Jacob and the owner of the coat of many colors. But this Shabbat is also the last Shabbat before we begin the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. And as I checked online to see what drashes were being delivered tonight by other service leaders, I discovered that in many synagogues, the topic was going to be about Hanukkah, because tonight is the 19th of the Hebrew month of Kislev, and Hanukkah always falls on the 25th of Kislev. It was the 25th of Kislev, about 2 million years ago, that a small band of single-minded Maccabees celebrated a victory against the overwhelming odds of a Greek superpower. It was then that the children of Israel began the rededication of the Second Temple. So I ping-ponged back and forth between these two topics, and last night I decided it was the story of Joseph that I wanted to talk about, because it's the story of how seemingly bad things can turn into good things, and how advancing in age and wisely maturing can bring wisdom. So in doing some research, I happened upon this African folk tale that I find really relevant to tonight's Parsha, Vayashev. There was an African king, and he had a close friend who had a habit of remarking, "This is good." And he said this about every occurrence in life, no matter what it was. So one day, the king and his friend were out hunting, and the king's friend loaded a gun and handed it to the king, but he loaded it wrong. And when the king fired the gun, his thumb was blown off. "This is good," said his friend. Well, the king was horrified. He was looking at his bleeding thumb. He became furious and he said, "How can you say that this is good? This is obviously horrible." So the king put his friend in jail. About a year later, the king went hunting by himself, and cannibals captured him and took him to their village. They tied his hands, they stacked up some wood, they set up a stake, and they bound him to it. But as they came near to set fire to the wood, they noticed that the king was missing his thumb. Now, they were very superstitious, and they never ate anyone who wasn't completely whole. So, when they noticed the king's thumb was missing, they untied the king and sent him on his way. Well, the king felt really bad. He was full of remorse. And so he rushed to the prison to release his friend. "You were right," said the king. "You were right. It was good." The king told his friend how the missing thumb had saved his life, and he added, "I feel so sad that I locked you in jail. That was such a bad thing for me to do." "No," said his friend, "this is good." "Oh, how could there be any good, my friend? I did a terrible thing to you. I owe you my life." "It is good," said his friend, "because if I wasn't in jail, I would have been hunting with you, and those cannibals would have killed and eaten me." And so goes the story of Joseph. Joseph is shown favoritism by his father Jacob, who bestows gifts upon Joseph. Sounds like a good thing. But as a result, Joseph is despised by his brothers. That sounds like a bad thing. So Joseph is sold into slavery by his brothers. Again, a bad thing. He is conscripted to work as a slave in the house of Potiphar, a very politically powerful Egyptian ruler. Kind of sounds like a bad thing. Potiphar puts Joseph in charge of his entire house because he sees Joseph is a man of God, very intelligent. Joseph is very handsome, so that sounds good. So Potiphar's wife finds Joseph completely irresistible and tries to seduce him. When Joseph spurns her, she seeks retribution by claiming that Joseph tried to rape her. So Potiphar throws Joseph in prison. Sounds like a bad thing. The warden of the prison sees in Joseph all the qualities that Potiphar saw in him, so he puts Joseph in charge of all the prisoners and gives him special privileges. Sounds like a pretty good thing. The Pharaoh's butler and baker are thrown into prison. The two of them have dreams which they ask Joseph to interpret. When Joseph's interpretations come to pass, and in time, the butler is returned to the Pharaoh. And the butler tells the Pharaoh of this man who he was in prison with is a prophetic interpreter of dreams. So the Pharaoh sends for Joseph to interpret his dreams. And when he sees the genius of Joseph, this man of God, he elevates him to the second highest office in the land of Egypt. That sounds like a really good thing. Well, this Parsha, Vayeshev, ends about there. But the story of Joseph's life goes on, and there's this constant oscillating of events between what on first blush seems really bad. Turns out sometimes in the long run, it's good. There was a quote when they asked the premier Chou En-lai, and they asked him this question in the 1950s, if the French Revolution of the 18th century was a good thing, he answered, "I think it's too soon to tell." I suggest that at times we are too quick to give and place a value judgment on current events. My 76 years of living informs me that oftentimes it's more about the long game than a judgment that is reached quickly and with flawed consequence. When this Parsha begins, Joseph is about 16 years old. And like most adolescents, He's narcissistic, he's impulsive, and he's all about himself. By the end of Vayeshev, this Parsha, he's in his late 30s, and he's empathetic, and he's patient, and he's wise. The dream that he interprets for the Pharaoh shows his prophetic powers, because he tells the Pharaoh that throughout the biblical land there will be 7 years of great abundance in both agriculture and livestock, but following this 7 years of plenitude, there will be 7 years of drought and famine. So Joseph is chosen by Pharaoh to prepare for the famine, and because the impulsive teenage Joseph has matured into a wise and patient Joseph, he develops a program that allows Egypt to prepare for the hard times which are to come. And woven throughout this story of Joseph is the message of the righteousness of forgiveness. When Joseph is in charge of saving the land from famine, he uses it as a vehicle for reuniting with his father and forgiving and reestablishing a loving relationship with his brothers. The mature Joseph has learned the lesson that, as stated by Gandhi, is the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. It never ceases to amaze me the relevance of the Torah. To think that these stories that were written some 2,500 years ago remain relevant for those of us living in the 21st century. The story of Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors was an award-winning Broadway play and is performed by theater groups throughout the Western world. Parsha Vayeshev is as relevant today as it was when it was written. It reminds us not to be too quick to judge, to not be too quick to arrive at a conclusion, and to remember, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Shabbat Shalom. And we are going to continue on page 253 with the Mishaberach.
May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless these members of our community. Catherine Adele Celentano, Robin Cohen, Marty Glenn, Diana Heller, Evelyn Gross, John William Hilbrecht, Jeffrey Kern, Panina Kolikant, Barbara Kurtzman, Kit Levine, Karen Lavoie, Sharon Maslow, Rick Moss, Dave Podolsky, Sylvia Ramsdale, Frida Russell, Margaret Schmidt, Elliot Schwartz, Cheryl Schelleb, John Sitters, Larry Spielman, Aaron Steck, Ellen Weingarten. And please feel free to say the names of any that you'd like us to keep in our prayers tonight.
Diane Schultz, Nancy and Harvey Pickett, Barbara and Marshall Hacker, Corey Joseph, Steve Saxon, Harvey Schultz,
Gary Schoenfeld.
Send them all comfort and relief speedily in our days, and grant them a complete healing of body, mind, and spirit. Blessed are you, source of life, who helps us to bring light where there is darkness and healing where there is brokenness. Mishaberach
Avotenu Mikor Habraha Laimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Emotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And that brings us to the Aleinu, which begins on page 282. Please rise.
Beach ladon hakol, latet gedula l'retzer bereshit, shelo asanu ki aratzot, lao samanu kamishpachot hadoma, shelo sam helkenu kahem, vegohor aleinu kechol hamonam. Vanachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim yosed aretz
Umoshavi karo
bashamayim mimaol ushchinatu so, begav hey meromin, hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efesulato, kakatuv betorato, veyadatyom v'hashevota, elevavecha,
Ki Adonai hu halim bashamayim ima'al
ve'al haaretz mitachat einod. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lamelech kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
And you may be seated. This week we have some birthdays. Leah and Ashley Freedoer are celebrating their birthday today. Nitzan Kolakant on Monday and Bill Alexander next Thursday. No anniversaries. Rick mentioned Hanukkah. You'll notice we didn't do a lot of Hanukkah in tonight's service, but Sunday there'll be lots of Hanukkah celebration here at COT. So be sure to check the bulletin for details about that. And Havurah will be meeting on Tuesday. You can also check the bulletin or the website for information about that. Any other announcements?
Leslie Moss's birthday is on Friday.
Right, but that'll be announced next Friday, but thank you, yes. Yes, and we'll be dark, but yes, thank you, sweetheart. Pamela Canova said, "Memories are moments frozen in time, trees that stand firmly rooted amidst the storms of life. They comfort us like the warmth of a crackling fire and soothe us like the sweetest lullaby. Memories are sacred promises never to forget our beloved, to treasure eternally the love and laughter we shared. Each memory is a link to the chain of life, a chain that can never be broken because it is made from love. Mountains may crumble and fall into the heart of the sea, but our memories will stand strong and solid forever." This Shabbat we remember Norman Sheleb, father of Herb Sheleb, Jerry Boxer of blessed memory, Lawrence Day, brother of Susan Aaroner, Ben Herson, grandfather of Allison Herson, Herbert Brown, father of Jackie Zucker, Bernard Meyer, Bernard Mayer, grandfather of Ben Baki Alexander. Sherry Alberts, niece of Jane Sachs. And we remember Ruth Hirsch, mother-in-law of Teresa Hirsch, and Jenny Cullen, cousin of Teresa Hirsch, who passed away this month. And we remember Stephen Joseph, cousin of Rich Carcel, who passed away just this morning. And you'll find the mourner's Kaddish on page 294. And, Leslie. Uh-huh. Yes, of course.
Rebecca Kazanoff, my grandmother. It's actually next week, but
Well, since we're going to be dark, I just want, thank you. We'll definitely add her name, and then she will also be said next Friday. And Susan, do you want to come light and Janie, feel free to come join. And Rich, I think. And I just want to assure people that next week, even though we're dark, several board members and members of the ritual committee will be saying the names of those on our Yortzeit list. And again, you'll find the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Please rise if you're able. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'alma Divrach Hirute, B'almik Malchute, B'hayehon Uvyomehon, Uvchaye Dekol Bet Yisrael, Bagala Uvizman Kari Vimaru, Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Leolam Almei Almaya. Yit Barak, V'yishtabak, V'yit Dabar, V'yit Naman, V'yit Naseh. V'yit Hadar, V'yit Taleh, V'yit Halal, Shemei Dekudashah Brihu. Leolam Min Kol Bir Hata V'shirata. Tushbata B'nei Halmata. Dami Oram B'alma V'maru. Amen. Shmaya. V'hayim Aleinu V'akol Yisrael. V'maru. Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mramav. Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu V'akol Yisrael. V'maru. Amen. And you may be seated. As we were driving down tonight, and I was checking a couple things on my phone, I saw this quote by Dr. Jill Biden, which just as we begin our celebration of light, I thought was meaningful. We may celebrate different holidays, we may sing different songs or say different prayers, but our shared American values endure season after season. And then I also wanted to end tonight with another poem by my favorite poet. Closing meditations. Soul shine. Let your soul shine in your chest. Let your heart sparkle in your eyes. Let joy fill your limbs with radiance. Let love fill your hands with splendor. You are the instrument of God's music, the tool of repairing the earth. You are the voice of wonder and awe, the song of hope and tomorrow. This gift, this majesty within, is not yours to keep. It is not yours to hold. It is not yours to hide. Let your soul shine, luminous, elegant, brave, and true, a beacon of praise, a lantern of song, a summons for holiness to enter our lives and this world. Let your soul shine, set it free to fill the space between the here and the unknown with abundance and with blessings. Shabbat Shalom. May you have a wonderful Hanukkah and a great week. And thank you for being here tonight.